The ladies' room was through the bar to the left. As I walked that way, I could feel the bartender's gaze on me. If you only knew, I thought to myself as I passed him. Once inside, I went straight to one of the stalls, set my purse on the shelf, hiked up my skirt, pulled down my garter belt and padded panties, and sat down to relieve myself. I made sure to make noise with the toilet paper in case anyone came in. When I finished, I stood, pulled up my panties and garter belt, rearranged my skirt, flushed the toilet, and walked to the mirror. I stood there for a moment, staring at Jessica's face while getting her lipstick out of her purse. What's happening to me? I thought, shrugged, made a face at myself, then repaired my lipstick. I took off my barrettes, shook my head, finger-combed my hair behind my ears, and headed back to the table. As I approached, I saw the bartender, a tall, broad-shouldered guy in his 20s, smile and greet me with, "Hi," in a very friendly, almost hopeful way. I just smiled back and kept walking, happily aware of the sound my heels made on the linoleum floor as I returned to my seat. Expecting to see only Diane, I almost missed the table. She was sitting and talking with someone. She looked up as I approached and said, "There you are. Jessie, I'd like you to meet Margaret Johnson." "Margaret, this is my half-sister, Jessica Strange." My heart stopped when I saw Margaret. Her daughter, Marilyn, had been my most vocal tormentor since 3rd grade. Marilyn had orchestrated many pranks against me, including the "smoke this cigarette or we'll beat you up" incident 2 years ago. Both Marilyn and Margaret knew me as Jason. Margaret stood up, extending her hand and saying, "I'm very happy to meet you, Jessica. Will you be in town long?" Shaking her hand and, I hoped, smiling, I replied, "No, not very. I have to get back home to Ohio before 5 o'clock a week from next Friday. I'll be leaving a week from this coming Thursday." "Or you'll turn into a pumpkin," she said, laughing. "Yep, definitely Marilyn's mother," I thought sarcastically. I laughed back, saying, "No, not a pumpkin. The contract with my fairy godmother stipulates prepubescent boy. At that, Diane, who had just taken a sip from her drink, nearly sprayed us with daiquiri but caught her laugh in time. "Sorry, went down the wrong pipe," she said, choking slightly as she wiped her chin and hand with a napkin. For the next 45 minutes, I had to be careful when making eye contact with Diane or it would set her off into another laughing fit. "My, aren't you the quick one?" Margaret said with a plastic smile, each word dripping with venom. The all-too-familiar tone of her voice made my heart resume its normal rhythm, and carefully smoothing my skirt, I sat back down, smiling sweetly. Just then, the waiter returned and asked if we would like another round. Dee and I said, yes, in unison, which set off yet another round of giggling. Margaret, still standing, said politely, "It was very nice to meet you, Jessica. I have to go pick up my daughter from ballet class, so I'll be on my way." "Nice seeing you again, Diane." "Bye-bye now," and she was gone. Thank goodness. I drained my glass and made eye contact with Dee. She didn't start laughing, but there was an amused grin on her face and a devilish twinkle in her eye. "Jessica, you are amazing. You handled that extremely well. Is that what you saw? Did you miss the part where my heart stopped when I saw who she was? I don't believe how mature you are. Have you been this intelligent all along? Did I miss it because I was thinking of you as a little kid?" I finished for her. "Yes," she confirmed sadly. Our fresh drinks arrived. I asked for the check, and the waiter complied, leaving us to our thoughts. I looked at the check, took $15 from my purse, and slid it under the ashtray. Diane had another cigarette lit, so I followed suit and lit one myself. We sat there, smiling at each other for a few moments, sipping and smoking. "I can't believe this is happening, but I'm so happy I've finally met you," Dee said. "This is wonderful. I love you too, Diane." As people started to drift over from the theater, the next show was about to begin. "Ready for the movie, sis?" I asked. She smiled at me again, then sighed, "Not really. I'm happy just sitting here with my new best friend." But, the movie we came to see, so a movie we'll go watch. We took one last sip of our drinks, stood up, and walked toward the box office. On the way, she said, since you paid for the drinks, I've got the tickets and snacks. Okay? Offer accepted, I smiled at her. By the way, Dee, what happened to your ladies' club meeting? I thought you wouldn't be back until after 9? Meeting? Oh, that, she grinned mischievously, there was no meeting. That stopped me dead in my tracks. You mean you planned this? Yes, ma'am. I wanted to see what you were up to. I knew about the clothing. You must have tried to hide it for some reason. I just put 2 and 2 together, she shrugged. That and the way you've been acting lately told me what you were up to. But I had to make sure. So I created the meeting to give you time to play, and besides, I wanted to see how you'd look. She explained. Sorry for the deception. Forgive me? I looked at my cigarette, took a last puff, and ground it out under my right pump. Forgiven, I told her, then smiled and put my arm around her waist. Let's get into that theater, sis. Don't want to be late again. On our way home, we stopped at a grocery store for cigarettes. No one questioned my age or gender. More proof that my costume was flawless, well, good enough, at least. My confidence just kept growing. You'd better be careful, Jessie dear, or you'll make a mistake, I cautioned myself. Back in the car, Diane asked, It's probably none of my business, sis, but where do you get your money? It came with 2 of my purses. Oh. Mind if I go trash picking with you? She asked jokingly. I won't be doing that for at least 2 weeks, if it's okay with you. I was seeking her approval for more time and femme. Okay with me? Hell yes. Want to go shopping with me tomorrow? As Jessica Lee? Please. I almost shouted. It's a date then. We have to get some more casual clothes for you anyway, and something to store your new wardrobe in. We don't want your dad finding any of it, not even one earring. Your perfume we can mix in with mine on the guest room vanity. We got home a little after 10. Diane walked up the stairs with me and said, Jess, why don't you use the guest room tonight? You can hang your clothes in the closet and store the rest of your things in there too. And if you want, I have a nice nightie you can wear. This was an offer I couldn't refuse. That night, I dreamed about finding a tight-fitting, artificial skin shirt with real chests. Chapter 5. I awoke, still wearing the wig, panties, nightie, choker, and falsy-filled bra, to the sound of Diane's voice calling me. Jessie? Are you up yet? Not yet, Dee, I mumbled. Well, I heard from the guest room doorway, come on, sleepyhead. We're going shopping today. Remember? Oh yeah. Not awake yet. Where are we going? I said, as I moved to get out of bed. Yawning, I squinted and blinked at my beautiful mom. Her low chuckle told me she was still having fun. Get up and go put on your face. Looks like you need a cup of coffee or 2 to wake up. I've got a fresh pot brewing. Hurry up. When you're presentable, put these on and come downstairs. These were a pair of feathery high-heeled slippers, mules, as Diane called them, and a lightweight robe from the depths of her closet. Pink. Excited, I made my way to the bathroom, removed my wig and choker, and washed my face. After washing up and relieving myself, I put my wig back on and went to the vanity table. The brush was still there from the night before, so I did my best to tame my bed hair. Then I pulled it into a loose ponytail and secured it with a barrette from my purse. Once that was done, I added color to my lips, cheeks, and eyelids, then slipped into the pink robe and mules. One last check in the mirror, and I headed toward the kitchen and the wonderful aroma of brewing coffee. I tied the robe closed on my way down the stairs. There you are. How did you sleep, sis? Any dreams? Yup, here I am. That coffee smells delicious, I yawned at her. How do you take your coffee? Sugar? Milk? Same as you, D. Did yesterday really happen? Was that a dream? I asked, looking at her. She already had a cup of coffee waiting for me, made just the way she does for herself. No surprise there. Yes, it did. No, it wasn't. Do you remember enjoying yourself? She replied, walking out to the patio with her coffee. I picked up my cup and followed her. Through the screen door, I heard her say, "Grab the cigarettes on your way out, will you please?" I found them on the counter by the door and picked them up. Diane was seated in one of the Adirondack chairs by the patio table. She motioned for me to sit in the chair opposite her. As I sat, she asked again, "Did you enjoy yourself yesterday?" "Yes, very much so," I replied, carefully sipping my coffee. "How about you?" Dee smiled and said, "More than I can express, meeting you is one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I'm really looking forward to spending today with you. I have at least 1,000 questions I want to ask." "Like what?" I yawned. "Like, how did you learn your role so well? Your mannerisms are very feminine. Where did you get them?" Reaching for a cigarette, I said, "Television, school, and at home, from watching you." I lit it, took a drag, exhaled, and continued, "I've had excellent role models of adult femininity. Plus, it seems I'm a natural mimic. And a damn good one at that," she said with a laugh. "Seems you've picked up one of my worst habits." Then she lit her own cigarette and took a puff. "Do you like?" She started to ask, but the phone rang, interrupting her. She scowled and got up to answer it. As the screen door side shut behind her, I heard her say, "Hello?" The rest of the conversation was cut off when she closed the inside door. 10 minutes later, she returned and asked, "How comfortable are you in this role?" "Pretty much," I replied. "Why?" Diane took a deep breath, exhaled, and said, "That was your teacher, Miss Talbot. She wants to talk to me about Jason." Her expression showed concern as she waited for my response. "I'd like you to be part of the conversation." I thought for a moment, took a sip of coffee, and slowly nodded. "Good," she said, visibly relieved. "She'll be here in an hour. Are you up for it?" "One way to find out," I said, standing up. "You seem to think I did okay last night with Mrs. Johnson, so I'll go get dressed." I put out my cigarette and stood. "It's a little chilly this morning. Can I borrow one of your sweaters?" "Sure thing, honey." "You know where they are?" she asked. "Yep, thanks, Dee," I said as I headed through the door. Once upstairs, I went straight to my mother's dresser and picked a peach-colored cowl neck sweater. I carried it back to my room, then chose a pair of jeans from my collection. They were a little loose in the waist, but fit my legs and padded derriere just right. Back in the guest room, I stripped completely, parking my wig on the bedside lamp. Everything else went on the bed. 20 minutes later, showered, powdered, and fully awake, I sat again at the vanity table. I used light peach eyeshadow, followed by brown eyeliner and a bit of eyebrow pencil. While checking my face for mistakes, I suddenly felt the urge to polish my toenails. Don't ask me why, it just seemed right. In the middle of getting ready, I took care of that. With 20 minutes left, I went back to the bathroom to powder my face, especially where my panties would sit. Then I returned to the bed and got dressed, panties, bra, chest forms, and jeans. I brushed my hair, pulling back the top layer from each side and fixing the resulting ponytail with a large barrette. Back at the vanity, I applied Chanel No. 5 behind each ear and inside each elbow. As I was pulling on my mother's sweater, I heard the doorbell. It could only be Miss Talbot. "Hi, Jenny, come in," I heard my mother say. "Hi yourself, Dee. It's been a long time. Is Jason here?" Miss Talbot asked. "Not really. Would you like a cup of coffee?" Yes. Good. We can sit and talk on the patio, Dee replied. Not really? Miss Talbot asked. Their conversation faded as they walked out to the patio. Here we go, I thought anxiously. I grabbed my wig from the lamp, slipped it into place, fixed the bangs, and brushed the sides forward over my shoulders. I resumed working on my face, blush on each cheek, then lipstick, blot, done. I took a final look, then realized I'd forgotten earrings. I quickly picked a pair, put them on, and thought, shoes. I need shoes. I ran back to my bedroom, slipped on the high-heeled sandals, and headed downstairs. It's showtime, I said aloud to myself. Jessica? Are you decent yet? There's someone I'd like you to meet. Come down when you're ready, sis. I've made another cup of coffee for you, Diane called up the stairs. Be right down, Dee, I called back. One last look in the big mirror, deep breath, hold it, exhale, another deep breath, exhale, ready. I walked down the stairs to the kitchen. Coffee's on the counter, Jessie. Come on out. Another deep breath and exhale, and I walked out to the patio with my coffee and a smile. Jessie, I'd like you to meet an old college friend of mine, Jason's 8th grade teacher, Diane said. Both of them were seated at the table, smiling at me. Jessica, this is Jenny Talbot. Jenny, this is my half-sister Jessica Strange. Happy to meet you, Jessica. You're very pretty, said my former teacher. Thank you, Jenny. Now I see why Jason had such a crush on you, I said, hoping I had a smile on my face. I set my coffee on the table and took the remaining chair. I don't think I remember you telling me about Jenny, Diane. You two were friends in college? Sure I did, Jessie. But, Dee started to say. Let me, Diane, Jenny said softly, touching my mother's arm. As I stood there, staring at my reflection, Diane and Jenny walked up and stood behind me, grinning widely. One of them said, Close your mouth, Jessica. I complied. Okay, now smile pretty, Jenny said, and I smiled. Kylie, you are an artist. Turn around so everyone can see, Jessie, someone else said. When I turned, I was greeted by 7 smiling faces, all nodding their approval. What do I owe you, Kylie? My mother asked. This one's on me, Dee. Please? Jenny requested. This one's free, girls. I insist, Kylie told them. In response to their protests, she explained, think of it as an early birthday present. Then she handed me a zipped vinyl case containing my new makeup. Don't forget to take this, sweetie. Enjoy. I had every intention of returning as soon as I could. We said our thank yous and goodbyes, promised to come back, and resumed our shopping. The 3 of us visited several clothing stores that afternoon, but bought very little. Jenny got a couple of dresses and a blouse, Dee needed some bras and panties, and I picked up 2 bras, 3 pairs of panties, and 2 camisoles, 1 black, 1 navy. On the way home, we stopped for dinner at the restaurant with outdoor seating. The conversation was filled with girl talk, shopping, how nice one of us would look in this or that dress, makeup, the girls at Just Face It, and plans for future get-togethers. After dinner, Jenny asked, What's the restroom like here, Jessie? I replied, clean, for stalls, large mirror. Shall we, girls? I tried to sound as much like Kylie as I could. Wide eyes and laughter followed that remark. Good. That's exactly what I was after. Jenny looked at Diane and said, Damn, Dee. You weren't kidding. Her talent for mimicry is incredible. Told you, my mother grinned back. As we stood to leave, I picked up the check, quickly calculated the tip, and placed it under my daiquiri glass. That act was met with 2 pairs of raised eyebrows. You two have done enough for me today, I quickly explained. Dinner and drinks are on me. With me leading the way, we headed through the bar to the ladies' room. The bartender smiled when he saw us approach, so I smiled back and said, "Hello again," and kept walking. In the ladies' room, we each took a stall, did what we needed to do, then met at the vanity. "That guy's cute. Is there anything I should know?" Diane asked. I stopped fixing my lipstick, looked at her slyly, and said, "Maybe." Jenny covered her mouth to stifle her laughter, though her eyes gave her away, showing her amusement and making it clear she understood. Dee just looked at me. I turned back to the mirror and focused on the task at hand. On the way out, we stopped at the cash register to pay for dinner. Looking at the check, the bartender said, "That'll be $37.86, pretty lady." Out of the corner of my eye, I watched Diane and Jenny as I pulled out 2 20s and handed them to my hopeful admirer, smiling shyly. His hand lingered in mine as he handed me the change. As I was putting it in my purse, he said, "My name's Lucas." Then he asked, "Can I call you sometime?" "Please do," I said, adding with a demure smile, "I was hoping you'd ask," all the while keeping an eye on Jenny and Diane. Jenny could hardly contain herself, while Diane looked at me like a dumbfounded mother. With a huge grin, Lucas said, "Great." At that point, Dee's eyes narrowed, and one corner of her mouth twitched as she put the pieces together. We were halfway to the door when Lucas called out, "Hey, pretty lady, what's your number?" Without stopping, I smiled over my shoulder and called back, "It's in the book." Lucas shouted loudly, through a goofy grin, "Wonderful." Jenny, Dee, and I walked out onto the sidewalk, and the door closed slowly when I let it go. We hadn't taken 5 steps when it opened again behind us. It was Lucas. "Well, what's your name?" he asked. "That's in the book, too," I said, turning to face him as I walked, smiling sweetly. He just stood there in the open door, eyes wide, mouth open, looking as if he wanted to say something but couldn't remember how to speak. Diane tried to stifle a laugh, but it escaped explosively through her nose. Jenny wasn't quite as polite. At the car, Jenny asked, still laughing, "Damn it, Jessie, are you trying to make us pee our pants?" "Just having a little fun," I replied, keeping a straight face. Dee's the one who thinks he's cute. Both of them giggled on and off all the way home. I think I heard the words tease and flirt used a few times amid the giggles. Chapter 6. "Could I have a picture of you, Jessie?" "I want something to remember this by," Jenny said when we got home. "Me too," Diane and I said at the same time. That set off a new round of giggles. God, was I having fun? More fun than Jason ever had. Cameras still set up in the living room. "How about a group shot?" Diane suggested. "There's still plenty of film. We can each have one." "Excellent idea, Dee." "But I want one of Jessica, by herself, too," Jenny said. "Oh. How about one for the crew at Just Face It? I know they'd love to have her picture. And she could wear, if it's okay with you, Jessie, her sexiest outfit," Diane added enthusiastically. "You know, the one you were wearing when I caught you." "Damn, was that only yesterday?" "Yeah. Yesterday." "Seems a lot further away than that," I said, shaking my head slowly. "Oh well, let's get the group portrait first, then I'll go change." We arranged ourselves in front of the fireplace, Jenny to my left, Diane on my right, and made faces at each other in the mirror. More giggling. Dee set the timer, rejoined us for the photo, and as the camera's beeping warned us of the impending flash, she said, "That's in the book, too," which triggered more laughter. We got ourselves under control just in time. That shot came out great. We had to take 4 more shots, though. Jenny got something in her eye at the wrong moment, and one was ruined by my perfectly timed sneeze. Jenny and I swapped the photos back and forth as we all drifted toward the kitchen. I stopped at the foot of the stairs and said, "I'll go change. See you in a bit." Back to where it all started yesterday, I quickly removed my sandals, jeans, and blouse. I then put on my black garter belt and a clean pair of black nylons. The white bra was swapped for the strapless black one, and I adjusted my chest forms. I moved to the closet, put on my halter-top cocktail dress, this time over my head as Dee had taught me, hooked the little hook in the back, and zipped it up. Next, I went to the vanity table for the black satin choker and earrings I wore when my mom walked in on me. Chanel No. 5 behind each ear, elbow, and knee. Done. Oops. Almost forgot, blush for my cleavage. There. Finished. I started for the door, then decided to take one last look in the dressing mirror. That's when I noticed that, except for stockings, I was barefoot again. I found my beautiful patent leather pumps in the closet, put them on, and buckled the straps. Now I'm ready, I said aloud to myself, then went to join my friends downstairs. Nobody was in the kitchen when I got there, but there was a drink on the counter and the door to the patio was open. Figuring the drink was for me, I picked it up and walked out to the patio. As the door closed behind me, I heard Diane say, "Here she is." "What do you think?" Jenny turned from gazing at the sunset to face me. She let out a low whistle and stared. The light from the setting sun bathed everything in sweet golden light, including me. "Lady Jessica, you are striking," Jenny finally said. I could feel a blush creeping across my face as I replied, "Thank you, Sister Jenny," causing her to dimple. No wonder Jason had such a crush on her all last year, she was cute. Dee was already setting up the camera when Jenny said, "Let's get that picture now, before we lose the light." She took my drink and set it on the patio table, while Diane directed me to pose in front of the bench under the rose arbor in the garden. The light lasted just long enough for 4 exposures. Too bad I was having so much fun mugging for the camera. We walked back to the patio to sit. Someone had thoughtfully covered my chair with a large towel to protect my silk dress, and I was truly grateful. We sat in silence, passing around the most recent 4 pictures and commenting on each one as it came to us. Once the final choice was made, Jenny promised to take the selected photo to the shop the next day. Diane took the last cigarette from the open pack, lit it, and handed me a fresh pack without a word. I tapped the pack a few times, like I'd seen her do, opened it, and picked out one for myself. After lighting it and picking up my drink, I sat back in my chair. "That bothers me," Diane said. I know, I smoke. But seeing you follow in my footsteps like that makes me a little uneasy. You'll have to put those behind you, you know. And soon." I sat there, sipping my drink, inhaling deeply, and exhaled before replying, "Not to worry, sis. Jessica is a smoker now. Jason never was, and he never will be. I promise. You'll see." Jenny looked at the photos in her possession while Diane and I sat there, smoking and sipping our drinks in silence. I finished my cigarette, put it out, and said, "By the way, Dee, what was in that large package?" She looked puzzled for a second. "Oh, that. It's a hanging wardrobe for all of your pretty dresses and things. Remember? That's one of the things we talked about. And it locks. Should fit nicely at the far end of your closet. Your father, I mean Robbie, my husband, won't even know it's there." "Has Robbie met Jenny?" I asked. "Yes, he has. But he doesn't approve of people like us, Jessie," Jenny said sadly. "He doesn't understand. Men are men, women are women, and neither should exhibit any characteristics of the other?" I said, hoping to lighten the mood. Well, it did get grins. "You're wise beyond your real years, Jessica. Don't ever lose that quality," Jenny said, then asked, "How long will you be around this time?" Diane answered for me. She told Margaret Johnson she'd be leaving a week from next Thursday. Robbie should be home the Friday after. "What do you have in mind?" "I'd like her to go shopping with Carol and me sometime. Both of you, actually. What I truly want is for Carol to meet Jessica. I know she'll want to after seeing these pictures and hearing about our day," Jenny told my mother. "I can't wait to see her expression when I tell her about poor Lucas." After the laughter died down, I innocently asked, Who's Carol? Jenny, smiling softly, answered my question. Carol is my wife, Jessie. Would you like to meet her? When? Is tomorrow too soon? How about it, Diane? My words spilled out. To meet yet another understanding person? Hell yes. As it turned out, tomorrow wouldn't work. Carol had to work and would be busy with other things until Saturday morning. So we agreed to meet at Jenny and Carol's place on Saturday. Chapter 7. Wednesday and Friday, I helped Diane with the housework, and Thursday, we went to the thrift shop. Diane got some jeans and a couple of blouses. I came home with several blouses, 2 sweaters, and a shoe rack for my closet. The rack fit perfectly under my new hanging wardrobe. During that time, Diane and I spent hours talking, taking turns answering each other's questions. My first question was simple: what's happening to me? Dee responded by explaining what she had learned about transvestism from John Talbot while they were lovers in college, shortly after he started hormonal self-therapy. They parted ways as friends during their junior year, and shortly after, she met Robbie, my father. She went on to tell me how, at a Halloween party the following year, she introduced Robbie to John. John had dressed as a 1920s vamp, and by then, his chest had developed. He wasn't wearing a bra, which initially attracted my father, but then repulsed him. It was too much for him, and they left the party early. Diane hadn't seen John as Jenny nor heard from her until Tuesday last. She and Robbie had seen Jenny's name on my report cards, but hadn't made the connection. She also told me how much freer John's personality had become as Jenny, and Jason's as Jessica, and wondered if Jason/Jessica would follow the same path. Diane asked if I had any interest in other boys. I replied honestly, actually altering my body isn't an option, and only one boy has ever appealed to me. I hastened to add, but that's something I'll leave in the past. I couldn't help but add, with a humorous confession, how foolish I felt upon realizing that I had a crush on a married man all last year, none other than Jenny Talbot. I can't believe the difference, Diane said. I hope Jason loses some of his shyness. You've shown me quite a few new sides of him. You'll see more of me in him when he gets back, Dee. And I'll be back whenever it's safe, I reassured her. I like both sides of me. I like being treated as an intelligent adult, and I like feeling feminine and pretty. I like the freedoms each role provides, so I'll be keeping both. What about the smoking? She asked. Jason won't smoke, but I will. It's as much a part of this persona as it is of yours. And I feel it adds to my image as Jessie, I said, reaching for another cigarette. Will you help me convince Robbie to let Jason let his hair grow? I think the other kids would have an easier time accepting him if he looked more like them. His brush cut sets him apart, and kids react negatively to visual differences. Diane chuckled sadly. I'll do my best. Jason's hair has been a sore spot with me for some time. Robbie knows how I feel about it, but with Jason's input, I think he'll give in. He won't necessarily like it, but he will allow it. We sat in silence for a while, sipping coffee and smoking, until Diane said, I was talking with Jenny last night. She wants to have Jason take a battery of tests. He isn't the most studious, but he seems to have a very high IQ, and his knowledge level is far beyond what his grade level indicates. She thinks he might be able to skip several grades. What's your opinion? Well, maybe it would help. It certainly can't hurt. He's pretty much bored in class, daydreams a lot, does well in art, shop, and science classes, and reads nonfiction almost exclusively. She might be right. Let's see, I replied. Diane nodded, gazing into space. We'll tell Jenny tomorrow. The rest of that Friday was spent setting up my wardrobe in Jason's closet. Diane had me wash and iron my washable feminine attire and showed me how to care for my wigs so they would be ready whenever I wanted them. The next morning, we went to Jenny and Carol's. I wore my new pastel blue sleeveless turtleneck, clean jeans, a pair of my mother's tennis shoes, and one of my mid-length wigs, styled in a long shag. Carol turned out to be Jenny's body double and just as cute. She wasn't as boisterous as Jenny, but neither was she shy. Her wit was quick, and her voice was soft. I liked her immediately. We sat together in the back seat of the Chevy, talking about Jason and Jessica while Diane drove us to our first destination. This turned out to be the same shopping center Jenny, D, and I visited on Tuesday. My mother parked in front of Just Face It, and we all got out. Jenny said, "Let's stop in here for a minute." We followed her inside, where we were greeted warmly by the staff. Diane and I were introduced to several beauticians who hadn't been there on Tuesday, and then Kylie said, "Will you honor us, Jessie?" Honor? How? I asked. Kylie looked at my companions with a mischievous glint and explained, "By putting your autograph on this." On this, she held up a small poster-sized reproduction of the picture we had sent via Jenny. I stared at myself, framed by the rose blossoms of the arbor, for a few moments, grinning goofily. Okay. But first, I pulled out my lipstick, walked to the mirror wall, applied a light coat to my lips, turned around, and said, "Ready." With a curious scowl, Jenny asked, "What was that all about?" "You'll see," Carol said with a rare grin. I took the picture from Kylie's hands, studied it for a few seconds, carefully placed a kiss on a light area in the lower right corner, and asked, "Anyone got a pen?" A pen appeared in my hand, and I wrote under my lip print. "To all of my sisters at Just Face It. Many thanks and much love. Jessica Lee Strange." Then I handed the print back to Kylie. Amber came forward, helped Kylie put the poster in its frame, carefully avoiding smudging the kiss. They then held it up for all to see and hung it on the picture wall. Other photos had been moved to clear a large space, and it was placed dead center. It was the largest photo there. After saying our goodbyes, Carol, Jenny, Diane, and I wandered in and out of several stores. We didn't find anything we wanted, we just shopped. Back at the car, Diane asked if anyone wanted to go anywhere special. We all shook our heads, except Carol. She wanted ice cream. The rest of us, suddenly craving it too, agreed quickly. So, we got back in the car and went to Baskin-Robbins for a midday snack. On the way, Carol and I once again took the opportunity to talk. It felt like a traveling question-and-answer session. She asked about how I felt when I found the clothing, how I learned to do my makeup, where I learned my feminine body language, and how I, as Jason, felt about the way I was treated by other kids, along with many other topics. I was happy to answer anything she asked. No one had ever taken the time to ask me these things. She also mentioned that she'd like to talk to Jason when he was available. I told her she'd meet him soon, in about a week or so, and added that he could ride his bicycle to her place whenever she wanted to see him. Once we were settled in the ice cream shop, Carol said, "There's a lot more I'd like to ask you, Jessie. Will you let me know when you're back?" Jenny and Diane started laughing. "You'll have to forgive Carol, Jessie. She's a psychologist," Jenny informed me. "Good. Next time I see her, whichever persona I'm wearing will have a lot of questions for her too, if that's okay with you, Carol," I replied. Carol smiled back and said, "I'm looking forward to it. And Jason can bike over any time he wants." "Will you be the one testing Jason?" I asked. "That wouldn't be a bad idea," Carol said. "The tests are more accurate when the testee is relaxed and in a friendly environment. Is that okay with you, Diane?" "Fine by me. But Robbie is to stay in the dark about this until it's over. For whatever reason, intellectuals are just as bad in his mind as those he considers faggots, and don't even think about bringing up religion or race," Diane explained. I sat there, nodding as I gazed at my hot fudge sundae. Breaking the silence after my mother's description of my father, I said simply, "Ignorance. That's all it is. Intentional ignorance. Doesn't know, doesn't want to know. May even be afraid to learn. If he ever finds out about Jessie Lee Strange." "There is that," my mother agreed. "Oh well, we'll just have to be careful." Chapter 8. I stayed in my Jessica persona for the next 5 days. My father wouldn't be home until after 7 p.m. on Friday, and my 14th birthday was the following day, Saturday. From Sunday through Thursday, the 5 days before my dad's return, Diane and I spent the time talking and fine-tuning my feminine self. Mornings were spent together talking over coffee and cigarettes. Afternoons found us watching soap operas, where Diane had me emulate specific actresses, verbally helping me capture each nuance of their inflection and body language. Evenings were spent in the garden or on the patio, sipping wine and talking, and, of course, smoking. Around midnight on Thursday, I went to bed, still as Jessica, when my mother declared it was time for bed. But sleep didn't come easily. Thoughts of the past 2 weeks kept me awake, especially the thought of returning to my role as Jason. Around 2 a.m., I got up, dressed in pink nylons, a pink turtleneck sweater, a black miniskirt, my favorite ankle strap pumps, and makeup, then stood in front of the mirror for a while, almost as if confirming the past 14 days had really happened. Feeling tired, but still not ready to sleep, I quietly left the guest room and walked down to the kitchen. My wine glass was still on the counter with my lipstick on its rim. I filled it with white Zinfandel from the fridge, picked up the cigarettes and lighter, and went to the garden to sit. Many thoughts ran through my mind as I sat in the moonlight, smoking my cigarette, sipping wine, and gazing at nothing in particular. I thought about my new friends, the possibility of my father finding out when I'd next get a chance to be Jessica, and what it all meant. I was so absorbed in thought that I didn't hear Diane approach. I didn't even realize she was there until she said softly, "May I join you, Jessica?" "Oh," I gasped. "You startled me. I didn't hear you come up." "Sorry, didn't mean to make you jump." "Want some company?" she asked quietly. "Please. Have a seat. Would you like a cigarette?" I offered. "Yes, thank you," she replied as she sat next to me. We sat in silence for a while, enjoying the full moon, the cool breeze, and the wine. After about half an hour, we started talking quietly. Her concerns matched mine. She told me how much she enjoyed meeting, getting to know, and being with Jessica. We discussed strategies for keeping our little secret and how to maintain it. I mentioned that, earlier in the week, Jenny had called, and while we were on the phone, Carol suggested Jessie could keep some of her wardrobe at their place and spend time en femme whenever we could get together. Dee nodded thoughtfully and said it sounded like an excellent plan. She offered to help me choose what to take over there, and I gratefully accepted. Eventually, the sky began to lighten. We had been talking for about 3 hours, so we each had one last cigarette and went inside. She showed me how to remove my fake nails and clean off the residue. To avoid confusion, we put the removed nails in 2 Ziploc bags, one marked L and the other R. After that, I went to the guest room to change back into Jason. But before I did, I took a long, loving look at Jessica in the large mirror. I ran my hands over my curves one last time before sadly turning away from my reflection. I undressed slowly, placing each item on the bed, took off my wig, and stepped into the shower. Half an hour later, the only trace of Jessica was lying on the bed, waiting to be sorted, laundered, and put away for another visit from my aunt. Later that summer, Carol administered the battery of tests we'd discussed. The IQ tests showed my mental age at exactly 24, 10 years older than my chronological age, giving me an IQ of 171. The general knowledge exams placed my learning level in the 87th percentile of college sophomores. Despite all of this, when the results were presented to the school board, the recommendation for me to be placed in an advanced academic environment was flatly denied. In the early spring, I took my GED exam and passed with flying colors. My father finally agreed to let me grow my hair out and gave up on trying to get me involved in sports. For my 14th birthday, he gave me a very nice baseball glove, which I still use occasionally when the need arises. I gave college a try, but it never quite felt like the right fit. Bicycling long distances became a regular activity for me and served as a convenient explanation for my shaved legs. Several years later, a cycling accident resulting in a broken collarbone led me to the gym to build up my shoulders, making it less likely to happen again. Since those 2 amazing weeks, I've spent many hours en femme, either alone or with friends. I also figured out how to navigate the changes puberty made to my body and face. I keep myself fit and mostly hairless. My legs are shaved for cycling, and I've stripped my torso for weightlifting, not only so I can see my muscles working, but it also looks much better in a low-cut blouse and stockings. The house I'm moving into is far out in the country, large, secluded, and will eventually have a huge garden. I've already set up a private guest room for visits from my dear, sweet Aunt Jessie. The room is ready, complete with a vanity table, large triple mirror, private patio, and a garden designed to mirror the one at my parents' house. Yes, there's a rose arbor. And there's also a guest suite for Diane, my loving mother, half-sister, and friend. Oh, and I almost forgot. In Jessie's room, there's a wall of pictures of some of my sisters, including the one of Jessie standing in front of the rose arbor that hangs at Just Face It. Jenny and my mom sent it to me as a housewarming gift a few weeks ago. Well, that's how I came to have all of my feminine things, or at least, how it all started. I still don't fully understand the why of it all, nor do I really care. There are more stories to tell. And I could tell you quite a few, but I really need to get this truck loaded. Maybe later, if you're interested.